we're at a point right now we really have to think about renewables. The roof is on, we got the brackets for our PV, but we have to think about solar water heating and what's involved with that. So what I did today is I brought in an expert, Rod Hyatt of HTP. He's come down here and he's going to scope out the project and give us some ins and outs and give us some education why we want to use solar water heating and some of the benefits. So let's meet him. Hey Rod, how you doing?
Hi Dave, how are you doing?
All righty. Hey, thanks for coming down. I know it's a big effort for you to get down here, but you're such an industry expert. We like to really pull in these people to take a look at the project.
Thank you, Dave. Beautiful project.
Well, thank you, thank you. We're working on, renewables, so we have a good part of it, is going to be solar electric, but we also have to think about solar water heating,
True. Well, water heating is sometimes left out because PV is taking the leading edge and got a lot of excitement, have been gaining a lot of ground in the U.S. and in the world in the last few years. But solar thermal makes a lot of sense because sometimes it's a lot less cost and you get a lot more bang for your buck. And the energy produced from hot water is substantially more than what you sometimes can contribute from just electricity. Oh, and so the balance has to be considered when you're putting a home together, whether it's a retrofit, an existing or an upgrade, or a brand new construction.
Well, is there another roof we could do? Like if we oriented this house true south, so right on here, but I had two other roofs and I didn't know which one made more sense.
Well, the south-facing roof you have already dedicated to PV, and you have an eastern south-facing roof that might be an excellent application as well. It's over here on the side of the garage. Right. Wide open space. It would be a roof that would catch the morning sun right off in the morning and jump your tank back up to temperature from your depletion of the night before. So this looks like a great application for to slide two or three panels over to handle the domestic hot water. Now, to my understanding, domestic hot water is your primary focus here for your solar thermal. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
So a very, very simple application that we'll talk more about.
All right, well, why don't I show you the print inside and we can go over it.
All right.
All right, well, I'm going to show you print. I have that PV design, but it gives you a good reference of the roof layout and the orientation on there. Well, here's the PV array that the engineer had laid out for here, and I'm not sure on that whether that was factored in the domestic load or just the indoor conditioning load. It was 13 kW is what they came up with on there, but the question is, what do I do now?
Well, people come to me occasionally and say, well, can I just oversize my PV panel array, if I'm going to put one on, to handle my hot water load? But if you consider and you measure your energy output for a PV array versus the energy output of a hot water panels are in the 80% plus efficiency range. And the PV panels have only gotten to about 20% efficiency range. So if you consider a square foot of area and that energy the sun is producing, a hot water panel is much more efficient to produce exactly what you're going to do, instead of taking an electrical energy and converting it into hot water. It takes about 4 kW of PV panels to heat a hot water tank for an average family. So now you've just consumed most of your hot water load for the rest of your home just to heat your hot water. So it's not a logical choice.
And here, with the roof space available, it's not like that fighting over a small footprint.
Right. And because you've laid this out so very nicely on this roof to where it fits very well, and we're going to take just a small segment of hot water panels and put over here on this roof, it'll take a fraction of the room to produce just as much energy of a different type of energy for the hot water needs on a natural hot water panel.
Right. Well, to me, it's always made sense. You put renewables where you can. I've put solar water heating on prior homes, so it all makes sense. So to me, it's ingrained. We dropped the ball when it came to the design, and so I'm glad you're here. Maybe we could go over some of those constraints. You want to walk around and get a look at the house and location? So,
beautiful.
Awesome. Well, why don't we come up here, Rod? I'll show you that roof from underneath and, see if there's any structural problems or anything you could understand. Here was the one roof that we looked at that was kind of shadowed, I think you said, by the main roof over here. It kind of stepped down. And so maybe this was not the best roof, but the garage is right through here. We've kind of framed this as like a future or bonus room over here. Yeah, so here's kind of what it looks like from underneath, I think it's substantial. It's all 2x10 rafters on here, and the idea, I think where you talked was more in this area over here.
Well, solar panels, hot water panels, don't weigh that much compared to the surface area that they take up. So it's not very often that you have to consider any special structural considerations at all.
Okay,
So
is there
this
any
is-
blocking or anything, or are they just attached to rafters? That's the main thing you think about?
Minorly, you need to have good structural attachment to the roof. You have a flat surface, so you have some wind that can grab a hold of those. So there are some important considerations as far as getting them lugged into the roof material or some blocking. There's a couple of different ways that can be addressed. The mounts are built very, very strong to grab a hold of the structure really well, and then it is good to have good attention to get them fastened to the laminate and not to just put something through the substrate, the plywood.
Right.
You want to get into the meat of it a little bit, and then you're in good shape.
Now, I know there's two different ways to do a system. One would be a closed-loop pressurized system, probably with an antifreeze mixture in our climate up here, or another one would be drain back. What are the advantages, and what would you, if you were designing it, what would you pick for this home?
Well, traditionally, the way that the hot water industries had matured, they'd always used closed-loop pressurized glycol systems. And as the industry's evolved, we've gone into using more of the closed-loop pressurized drain back system, which is very much the same, except for a lot of times you can use only water. You don't need to have a glycol mixture in it. And the basic principle is, and we'll show you more about this later, is it's closed loop and the fluid just drains out of the panel. So there's nothing in the panel to overheat in the summertime or freeze in the night cold of the wintertime. Where's your mechanical room?
Well, in this case, it's going to be in the basement. You know, New England feels like you can't build a house without having a full basement. So let me show you what I have down there, and space and all that available. And we can talk a little bit more about maybe the heating system, so you get a feel for all those kinds of things. Does the size of the collector matter? Sorry, an afterthought. Walking through here, and mounting and schlepping and putting it on the roof. What makes more sense? Bigger few or more smaller?
The larger collectors are a little bit more efficient for cost, of course, but it also depends on what your structure might be able to handle. You might have more of the smaller collectors, and common collectors are usually 4 foot by 6.5, or 8 foot, or 10 foot. If you've got a great open roof space that doesn't give you any impedance on area, the larger collectors, less of the larger collectors would be a more economical direction to consider.
Is there any weight constraints on that? Movable, a manpower doing 8 footer over a 10 footer? Or something?
Some contractors like to handle the 4x8s because it's common. It's like a sheet of plywood, and they're common to maneuver like that. And a 4x8 is under 150 pounds. You get to a 4x10, it's larger, it's heavier, it's above 150 pounds each. A little bit harder to handle, and you might need some extra people and some more equipment to do that. So that is a consideration that might be on a smaller contractor if he's going to install domestic hot water heating systems.
Okay, well, that's good information. Well, let's go look at that mechanical room and see what you think. Down here, like I said, a basement, so a mechanical room. I really haven't fully established where everything's going to go, but have a feeling the tanks are going to go right here because my well is directly over here. We dropped our lines, for our well pump and everything out. So it would be in here. So probably storage tanks and probably hot water, since it's almost a straight shot up to get to that area you just pointed out. Above the garage, we can come down some interior partitioning and get into here. So I was thinking that this would make sense to do that.
Well, you have a couple of choices that the industry uses. You don't need to have a lot of tanks anymore because solar is now integratable into the standard water heater that you're going to have. So if you have, if you're going to put an electric water heater or a gas water heater in, HTP has both. So you'll have an electric backup with a solar integration. So the solar can be the primary heat source, which is unusual in the industry. The solar is the primary heat source and the electrical is the backup, or the gas can be the backup. And one tank is all you need.
Oh, because that's all you ever see is 2 tanks. You have your conventional, whatever you're going to do over here, and this is my solar, whether it's got a coil in it or something like that. And maybe they connect it, maybe they only do preheat. That's my pet peeve. Somebody does this and it heats the water, but the only time water gets in the other tank is when you open a fixture, and I'm like, oh my God.
That's very yesterday.
Yeah.
Today everything is integrated, much simpler, and lower cost, and one tank is all you need.
I like that idea. Okay, well, the other thing, in looking at the mechanical room here, well, slash basement, I don't want to call it mechanical room. It's like the master, it's always that case. Master bath is at that end. Over here is probably central for the water heating that we're going to do. I would put in a recirc loop to make sure, either timed or lifestyle or one of those smart ones. But where would you bring that into a storage tank like that? Is there a tapping or a place, or what do you suggest that you don't screw up your solar?
There is. A lot of times, newer homes, and a lot of times in codes now, particularly in California, you have to have recirculation systems in homes of certain sizes. And so you want to have water where you turn it on at. And if it's on the other end of the house, you want to have hot water there at the point. And so most all of our products now have recirculation ports in them. So what's really neat about it is if you've got solar energy out there, that recirculation port is going to use a little bit of an energy because it's taking it out of that insulated tank. And so now if it's backed up by solar, free energy, it's not costing you anything to keep that hot water over there, that tap, when you want to turn that on.
Yeah, I would insulate those hot water lines to minimize loss, but in general, there is loss. So
there is some
that's
loss.
Great. That's great, because I've heard stories where if you get too big of a pump, you churn up the tank, and next thing you know, you get too much, your temperature, you don't have a good drawdown, all those other things.
Correct, and the new pump technology is jumping leaps and bounds, particularly in recirc areas too, to where they don't take a lot of energy. Dave, I need a few more particulars to be able to produce a layout or a design. And we have turnkey kits that are available. And we've talked about that you can have electric backup or you can have gas backup. We need one tank. And you have a couple of sizes that are most popular, 80 gallon or 119 or 120 gallon type tank is the best choices for the size that you're looking at. And then 2 to 3 panels is a good target for, and you've got plenty of room on the space on the roof to choose what you might want, and particularly in the size that you wish in that fashion. And then you have the choices of going to a closed loop pressurized glycol system or a closed loop pressurized drain back system. The advantages of a drain back system is you have freeze protection and you have overheat protection, where the other one has a little bit more maintenance, but both choices would be excellent for you.
Right. I've kind of done a little bit of research and thought, last home that I did have solar water heat, I did have that closed loop pressurized system on there. I had to worry about a heat dump. We went away, we had things to do. So in talking to the engineer, he suggested drain back, and I know it's really kind of catching on popularity now, and it makes sense. So I'm kind of leaning towards a drain back type system on there.
Good choice.
And I was thinking of smaller collectors versus the 10-footers, just for manpower, getting them up on the roof, getting staging. So probably 8-foot long collectors kind of makes sense. You could do the math. You tell me whether I need 2 or 3 of them. I don't know, but that's kind of the thing. And if I'm going to a single integrated tank, maybe just me and my wife right now, but or a family come and a grandkid, whatever, or God forbid I sell the house. I don't want to. I hear,
Be
oh,
undersized.
yeah, that's the last thing, bad news travels, or whatever, if somebody's not happy. So I would look at the bigger size tank on that. So, and since we have so much free PV, I think electric backup makes the most sense, on this particular application. I don't have to worry about gas piping, flues, all those other kind of things for that.
Sounds like you've got it figured out.
All right.
Good.
All right, well,
We'll
awesome.
put it together.
Thanks,
Dave.
Rod. Appreciate that.
All righty.
All right. Wow, he's a wealth of knowledge. All these different types of ways to do it, drain back, closed loop, storage tank, combined, not, it's almost mind-boggling. So in our next episode, we're going to get Rod back again. He's going to go through the design process, and he's going to specify, what I need, how many collectors, what size tank, and just kind of, follow through with my thought process on there. So stay tuned, it'll be great.